morning, good afternoon, and good evening, whichever best applies. Today is June 8th, 2017. It is a Thursday, and my name is Brendan. A lot to talk about today, but first off, some quick things. Qatar has already been in an issue with the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council. Say that again, the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council. Probably going to want to do a little bit more research. There's a lot that goes on there as far as the blockades, or I guess the blockades as far as air travel, sea travel. But today, why that's getting brought up a little bit more is Julian Assange actually just released a tweet today mentioning that Qatar had one nuke. He mentions that he was told this from Al Jazeera, or the head of Al Jazeera, during 2010, but then he responds in his tweet that they have one nuke and can only use it at one time, and then says Al Jazeera, period. So I'm not sure if it means that they have one nuke or that their one nuke is Al Jazeera, since Al Jazeera was actually made in Qatar. Next, over in Syria, we recently started another attack on what we believe to be pro-government troops for Syria. These troops were believed to be moved or led over to the direction where they were by Iranian forces, though Iranian forces weren't there on the ground when this was happening. Now, this is kind of a big issue because still we are in waters where not necessarily we should be in. We're doing things under the guise, I guess, of humanitarian aid, though it's getting harder and harder for us to really validate that what we're doing is for those reasons. Supposedly, the area where we attacked, troops were moving into, and this is a de-conflict zone, which doesn't really make sense since all of Syria is a conflict zone at the current time. But I don't make the rules, or the words that they use to describe the rules. And now to the biggest news, the Comey news. Now, James Comey went on trial today, and he had a hearing today. He was able to speak his mind and able to answer some questions from some members of the Senate. There were two chairmen. There was Chairman Warner and there was Chairman Burr, or Chairman Burr and Vice Chairman Mr. Warner. Right from the bat, we've learned, I mean, it's not great. It's not great if you were on the side of Trump, and it's not great if you were against him. What we got from the very beginning from Mr. Burr's statement was that the Russians attempted to interfere with the election. There was no doubt, James Comey said, no doubt that they were trying to interfere. Right after that, or after they asked a series of questions on Russia, they said, were any votes tampered with? Did they make any votes? Did they take away any votes? Were there any vote tampering that can be attributed to Russian interference? And he said no. Comey denied that that was even a possibility, at least to the point where he was last part of the government as far as the leader or the director of the FBI. Had not happened. So, okay, that's good. Are they interfering with our election? Okay, now that sounds one way to say that they're interfering with our election. That means they could be coming over, and as I'm trying to vote, they smack it out of my hand and they say you have to do this. But that's not entirely what I believe the interference is. What I believe the interference is was them trying to present facts, present articles, maybe coming over here and funding a group that was just trying to help one particular candidate. Now, they may have been pushing that agenda to try to help, let's say, Trump get in. Because, for example, if Hillary had gone into the election, they would have been a bitter rival to Russia. Hillary was not speaking very highly of Russia and did not care for them the entire time. So does it make sense that Russia would probably rather have Trump in there than Hillary? Yes. But as far as interference as in making up information, no. Did they perhaps help out with WikiLeaks? I'm not sure. Did they perhaps help with the leaking of those emails? I'm not sure. But if all they did was release facts, then interference is kind of a different word to use. Interfere, or more just play a part. For example, we've interfered in many elections. We've allowed people to be elected and then gotten rid of them immediately. That is a massive interference. Now, if we went over there and tried to tell everyone, hey, listen, this guy isn't good, this guy is good, this guy has done this one has done this, we're just giving many options. Now, it would be called interference because that's not our country, which is exactly what this would be. This is an interference in that sense. This is not their country. However, I'm not surprised, and nor should anyone be surprised. You want to make sure that you're looking across this ocean, you see the two possible candidates, and you see, okay, well, we can easily throw some fire in this argument against Hillary. It's not difficult. She has a lot of garbage, and on top of it, with all these leaks, it's simple. Now, Trump, we could do the same thing, but it doesn't hurt us as much to have him in the House at all. Plus, it will make the country look destabilized. They will be destabilized in general, which will probably help Russia in the future. This is the bigger picture. It's always a bigger picture. It's not tiny. Interference is a small word. It makes it seem like they were in here directly pushing at. And whether they were or not, all they were doing was providing information that maybe there are Democrats didn't want some voters to see. And then providing Republicans with stuff that maybe the Democrats didn't want them to know either. Interference, yeah. But that would be like Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders was an interference to Hillary Clinton. Yeah, he was, because he got in her way. But I wouldn't consider that a bad thing at all. I think he was definitely good to interfere. So it is funny that you use that word interference, but you have to remember that interference, it describes a large thing. It describes a large set of activities that they could have been doing, and we still don't have those specific activities. Another pretty big piece of information was that Comey said that Bill Clinton's meeting on the tarmac actually did have an impact on what happened with the emails from Hillary Clinton in the DNC. That won't be brought up anywhere because no one wants to talk about that, but that was something because of that interference that happened there. We're all trying our very best to hedge our bets and make sure that we can do the best and we get the response that we want. We're all complicit in this. Now, it was brought up that Trump told Comey that he needed loyalty and he expected loyalty. He didn't demand it. And that's a lot about what goes on here. It's the verbiage, the vernacular that was used by Trump and Comey in these little talks or these little meetings. And that's what makes it from obstruction of justice to perhaps this man just has no idea what he's doing. And that's what you kind of see. Because they're not entirely illegal, but it does push that boundary. And really, when you watch it, what you get the bigger picture of is that this guy might just not know what he should be saying and what he shouldn't be saying. I mean, even after he said the things to Comey that weren't really good, like I need loyalty, I expect loyalty, things that made him uneasy, even after Comey was fired, he talks about it to the Russians as if it's nothing. Like, these are all things that you wouldn't do. This is not protocol for a president. But he was not a politician. His protocol is not up there. However, Comey did say in this talk that he did not necessarily go as strong as he should have after these little interactions took place. He should have went right to whoever was in the White House counsel that was going to let Trump know, you can't do this. You got to stay out of this business. You can't be involved in here. Don't say that. You can't even mention it. For him to say, I expect loyalty or I need loyalty, you're not just a regular guy like me. You have behind you a whole set of nuclear arms plus an army. So you have to be very careful with your word choice, which is going to be tough for someone who tweets all the time ridiculous nonsense. So we shouldn't be surprised by this as well. He's not good with his vernacular in that sense. He's good in a business sense. You're able to kind of strong arm a little bit in a business sense. But in politics and stuff like this, in the real world, in this atmosphere, you cannot do that. We have laws, we have legislative barriers for this reason. Like Comey said, the reason that he was elected for 10 years, as most directors are, is so that way there's not so much of a political bias. Because as their 4-year election cycles, he's there for 10. And again, justice is supposed to be blind. Justice is blind for a reason. That way it's not looking out, trying to see if it's making everybody happy or not. Because it doesn't matter, it goes off of facts. Now, Comey mentioned that he never felt pressured into doing anything illegal or anything criminal, and he never felt like he was going to have his justice obstructed in any of the cases or issues that he was working on. However, he felt uneasy. In the presidencies he had worked with before, with Obama and Bush, this did not happen. And even still, you're not going to find many examples of people talking like this crass. We have had presidents before that have spoken like this, but in the modern day, there's a certain level you have to take. You have to be very keen about what you're saying and how you're saying it. Now, out of all the people that we had talk, the biggest two were Mr. Burr, Senator Burr, and Senator Warner. They really led the beginning of this, and they really hit it off right from the get-go. Comey let it out right off the bat. He felt uncomfortable. He knew that he had to write down all of these interactions he had with Trump because he wasn't sure that Trump, just based on his character, the manner in which these conversations are going on, and the substance of them, he wasn't sure whether Trump would lie in the future about this, which is bad. But again, Comey is very by the book. He's very straightforward. He's in the FBI, so he is about reading people and reading the situation. So it's not surprising to me that he looked at Trump, a businessman who every now and then businessmen lie. They are very good at that. He looked at that and he said, you know what? I'm going to write down every single bit of this, just in case. I've heard some things about Trump. I just want to be sure. Cover my own end and cover the FBI's end. These things aren't the way that government and these activities are supposed to be run. However, not every individual who's going to come up into the presidency is going to know all the fine details of it. There's a lot that we don't know, and we have to learn constantly as a president goes throughout their term. But still, someone needs to let him know. Now, whether Comey should have stood up and said, listen, you fool, you have to turn this around. You can't do this. This is not the way that things work, okay? This is how you do this. This is how you approach that. You don't say this to me. You can't ask for this. You can't tell me that Mike Flynn needs to be let go. Somehow in this instance, he was able to say it in a way that was persuasive as to get his point across, but not to be in the obstruction of justice. So for anybody who's trying to say we're going to impeach him, this isn't enough. If more information comes out, perhaps. But as of right now, he's still going to be there. And we're going to have to find a way to work with the insanity and craziness that this presidency is. Now, later in that hearing came up Marco Rubio. Now, Marco Rubio was one of the people who came up and asked Comey, why didn't you say anything? Why wasn't this brought up? I understand. I've never been in that space. I'm not sure I would handle it the most courageously. As Comey said, he is not a Captain Courageous. That's fine. I'm not sure I would be when I was talking to the president, especially if he's a rational president like Trump. Now, Rubio finalized by saying three things. He said the president, overall, it seems, asked you to do three things. The three things were to give him loyalty. He said, I need loyalty. To which Comey responded, I will give you honest loyalty. Second, he said he would like the Mike Flynn thing to be let go. Things he shouldn't have been asking Comey either. 3, Trump asked Comey to release to the public that Trump was not under investigation. When you look at them, not enough for an impeachment. Even with all that Comey was able to bring to the table, it's not enough. Improper procedure? Yeah. Enough to impeach someone? No. So we can keep fighting about this. We keep arguing about it. He said, she said, or in this case, he said. But at the end of the day, we're left right back at the beginning. More Russian stuff to come, I'm sure. It's never going to end. And if you think it's going to end, you're crazy. You're just crazy. That's all.